Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. This fall, gear up for get-togethers and game days with Safeway's Game Time 4x event. Earn 4x reward points on essentials, from chicken wings to chips and dips. Safeway has everything you need to cheer on your local team at Safeway.com or in the app.
Do you remember how Ralphie the Buffalo retired? That's CU's live mascot that runs across the field on game days. The reason was that Ralphie didn't like to run. But she's been replaced, and good news, Ralphie the Seventh loves to run. She's also apparently a fan of classic rock, earning her the nickname Brandy after her favorite song. She runs this Saturday, and Coach Prime is also supposed to be back after he had a procedure for blood clots this week. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. Coming up, Trump says federal employees might not get back pay after the shutdown, and that is creating confusion over unemployment.
You know, I'm a single mom of 2 children, and so it's very uncertain, it's terrifying.
Then, a classroom reinvented where Native students can feel visible.
We've never really had a space here at DPS where, they're able to feel welcome and see their identity in that space as well.
Plus, cold weather is challenging for your plants and trees. But there are things you can do now to prepare.
Watering right before that frost hits. As weird as that sounds.
It's Thursday, October 9th. Here's the news in Colorado Today. Unemployment claims from Colorado's federal workers are surging. This amid the federal government's shutdown.
Oh, yeah. I've got kids, and, I have to have something to help them, to pay for them, to get them to and from school.
Stephanie Rogers is a microbiologist with the Food and Drug Administration and a union leader. She filed for unemployment the day after the shutdown started.
We don't have a bus system that picks up where we're at, and so we have to have this.
The shutdown is not the only thing that's putting more federal workers on unemployment. CPR Sarah Mulholland is here to share more. Sarah, furloughed employees are technically not unemployed. Normally they get back pay at the end of a shutdown. So how are they eligible to get unemployment from Colorado?
So assuming that they do get back pay this time, they would have to pay back the unemployment to the state. So the way to think of it is a Band-Aid to help them get through this time when it's unclear how long the shutdown will last. But the Trump administration says it does not believe furloughed workers should get back pay. So we're headed into some uncharted territory in terms of what will happen with that back pay. But it's important to note that there is a federal law enacted in 2019 following the last shutdown that mandates retroactive pay for federal employees affected by government shutdowns. But even so, Stephanie Rogers told me she's terrified about what will happen if they don't get back pay.
And in the middle of all that confusion, another whole group of federal workers just became eligible for unemployment, right?
That's correct. So these are the folks who took the so-called deferred resignation through September 30th. They were still getting paid by the federal government, even though the Trump administration asked them not to come back to work. But that ran out last week, making them eligible for unemployment. And we can't say for sure how many people in Colorado are in this situation. The data just is not available. But we do know that nearly 1,500 federal workers have filed for unemployment here since Trump took office again, and nearly 300 of those were just last week.
Wow. You spoke to some of those federal workers. How are they?
Well, they're worried. I mean, they're anxious about what happens next. I talked to someone who works at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. He develops low-income housing. He and his wife both work for the federal government, actually. He only wanted to go by his middle name, Glenn, because he feared retribution. But he told me that he has chosen not to file for unemployment yet, but that he may change his mind.
Missing one or two paychecks would not be the worst. We're in an okay spot now financially, but I mean, if this thing drags on and on, which it seems like it might, like that, that just gets to be a worse and worse proposition.
He and his wife have a 4-month-old child and a daycare spot to pay for, which they can't stop paying or they'll surrender it to another family. He is relieved that he and his wife made it through many months of federal layoffs so far with their jobs intact. But this shutdown and the president's threat to carry out more layoffs are definitely weighing on his family.
We just don't get information. It takes so long for information to filter down, and it's already so watered down that it's like, well, we kind of have learned more from the news than we have from, our internal channels.
Man, I can just imagine how frustrating that lack of information has to be.
Yeah, but Arlo, I was struck by Glenn's commitment to his work despite all of that frustration that he feels. So this is what he had to say about government service.
To me, there's kind of no greater honor than serving your country, and the way I serve my country is as a federal civil servant. It's connecting people to programs that can help lift them out of poverty. It's showing up every day and doing unglamorous work to make sure that people who need help can get it.
And Rogers, too, told me that her job at the FDA is about protecting the food supply, and she sees that as a service to the American people. But she's on the sidelines right now, and her expertise is, in her words, going to waste.
CPR Sarah Mulholland, thank you so much.
Thank you.
What used to be an empty classroom at West High School in Denver is now something new for all students in the city, a native student center, the first of its kind in the district. CPR's Sandy Patulga was there for the grand opening this month. Sandy, why was this space created?
At the event, staff members and students told me that they wanted a central location for Native folks in the district to gather. Denver Public Schools has about 800 students right now who self-identify as Indigenous. They come from many different tribes and are spread out across Denver. West High School principal Mia Martinez-Lopez spoke at the opening and said she'd been thinking about how many Native students have been displaced over the years. Schools would close because of low enrollment, and then student populations got consolidated. As a result, they'd get moved from school to school. Martinez-Lopez said,
wanted to hopefully honor a space and open a space to bring them back. To bring them back here as just to have a place of to call their own.
That's why she volunteered the room at West to be the Native Student Center.
Okay, so I get the idea of wanting your students to feel welcome. I especially see the importance of Indigenous students feeling that way. But why a physical space? Why is that important?
Because without that dedicated place, Native students and families have often felt invisible and overlooked inside DPS. Alexis Rainvey-Hill is a staff member and Denver Public Schools alum. She said Native students had access to offices and clubs in the past, but those were scattered and didn't feel like they truly belonged to the students themselves. She remembers feeling like they were intruding.
I remember those offices being just so small and cramped and really not student-orientated. And it didn't really feel like a space for youth to be in. And I remember being in those spaces kind of like feeling like I'm seeing, someone's personal space and not a space that was meant for me.
And that contributed to her feeling of being overlooked.
Now, Sandy, you were there for the opening. This new student center, what is it like? Can you paint a picture for me?
I think the opening celebration really set the tone. There was a traditional song with a drum, speeches from DPS leaders, and plenty of food. Navajo tacos, stews, even popcorn. West High School is a Gothic-style building, so the room itself is bright and open, with tall ceilings and big windows looking out onto a garden. And there's even a greenhouse attached, where staff hope to grow traditional crops like corn, beans, and squash, also known as the Three Sisters, and pass down that knowledge to students who maybe don't have other ways to learn about their culture and identity. Adriana Brady, who manages Denver's Native American Culture and Education program, who was responsible for this room, put it into historical context.
We've never really had a space here in DPS or within the schools a space we could call our own, and families and students where they're able to feel welcome and see their identity in that space as well.
And are there other ideas for how the space can be used in the future?
Yeah, that's still being decided, actually. There's even a suggestion box in the room. Staff imagines it being multi-purpose, everything from cultural activities like beading or ribbon skirt making to practical nights for FAFSA and scholarship applications. And it's not just for students. DPS is also launching an American Indian Parent and Guardian Advisory Committee, so families can help shape the future of the center. And that definition of family is broad. It can be any community member.
And that space is open just in time for Indigenous Peoples Day, coming up on Monday. CPR Sandy Patulga, thank you.
Thank you.
Gardening in the fall. There's more to it than just who can grow the biggest pumpkin.
The most common thing we're asked is how to overwinter your freshly planted perennials and trees.
Meaning, how should we take care of these things to help them grow through the colder months? Sam Nelson is head grower at Fay Lynn Gardens in Colorado Springs.
When the temperatures get really cold, the snow starts coming, and these plants start to die back. We want to make sure we're caring for them properly during that weather so they wake up and come back nice and beautiful in the springtime for us.
Again, we're talking about perennial plants, your trees, your shrubs, and certain type of herbs.
Can be anything from yarrow to your bleeding hearts to your Russian sage, that kind of stuff.
These kind of plants aren't truly dead in the coldest months. They're hibernating.
So they look dead on the surface, but underground their roots are still spreading and searching for that moisture and needing to be cared for to come back adequately.
The most important thing to tend to that these plants need during the winter is water.
You have to get out there and water those plants at least once a month, maybe even twice a month if we have a warmer winter. With how dry it is, those roots still need that moisture, and we just don't get enough snow here.
Nelson recommends getting out in the morning when temperatures get above 40 degrees to do your winter watering. And as we get closer to that first frost, which mind you, typically happens around now, there's plenty you can do to protect your plants, including using bark mulch to give some insulation from the cold. Plus,
watering right before that frost hits. As weird as that sounds, then what happens is the water is going to freeze around that root structure and create almost like an igloo effect, rather than the roots themselves taking that shock and it damaging that root ball. So watering right before, the mulching is great, and then there's also things like frost cloth or using an old cotton sheet of sorts that you can put over those plants to kind of help protect from that initial shock as well.
As counterintuitive as all this winter watering talk might sound, Nelson says it's really important. And for all you procrastinators, just like myself, good news, it's not too late to do a bit of planting.
Fall is still a great time for your pansies, your marigolds, ornamental cabbage and kale and peppers. Those are all really great fall plants. They can tolerate the cold. Looking ahead to spring specifically, now is still a good time to get perennials, trees, and shrubs in the ground. We still have a little bit of time there. We're also coming up on that time for your fall bulbs, like your tulips, your alliums, daffodils, and then garlic. Now is the time to plant your garlic.
Okay, so the fall checklist is keep watering through the winter, add mulch, and get your bulbs, your trees, and your shrubs in the ground before it gets too cold. And with that, happy fall gardening. And if you want to get even more down on the dirt with gardening advice and answers to listeners' questions, check out the Colorado Matters podcast. Reporting for today's show came from CPR's Ryan Warner, Haley Sanchez, and Elaine Tassi. Speaking of Ryan Warner, host of Colorado Matters, did you know you can get a mug with his face on it? Buying it is one of the many ways you can support Colorado today. I'll leave you a link in the show notes, and if you buy it, make sure to tell him that I personally sent you. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. Their pharmacists are here to help, offering a wide range of vaccines including flu, COVID, pneumonia, and RSV immunizations. Visit your local Safeway or schedule online at safeway.com/pharmacy.